Brachos Daf Yud Tes begins by discussing the halachos of kavod hameis, having proper respect for the dead. The Gemara will flow into kavod et talmidei chachamim after they died. The Gemara will bring a number of instances in which people were put into cherim for their lack of kavod talmidei chachamim. The Gemara will then return to the Mishnah and discuss the halacha of Kriya Shema as it pertains to people attending a levaya, a hesped, the Avel during Shura, and other people during Shura. Then the Gemara will launch into the topic of Kavod Abrios and what you are allowed to violate as far as Yisurim for the sake of Kavod Abrios, maintaining human dignity. So let's see, the Gemara says that Rabbi Yitzchak says anybody who says something nasty about a dead person, big deal. It's like you're saying something nasty about a rock. Either the dead don't know or they don't care. Rav Papa asked, is that true? But somebody said something not nice about Shmuel and after he died, and then a reed fell off the ceiling and struck the guy in the head, and it pierced the membrane surrounding his brain. So the Gemara answers that was different. Shmuel is Tzur Mirabanan. He's one of the Talmidei Chachamim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself takes care of his honor. Says Rabbi Shua ben Levi, anybody who says something about Talmidei Chachamim after they die will fall into Gehenim. Like the pasuk says, V'hamatim akalkaloisam, anybody who turns his wickedness away, meaning to hide it, he does not do tshuva, he hides his iniquities, somebody like that, Ya'ilichem Hashem es payali ha'oven. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take him away, these who do evil, and the pasuk ends off, Shalom HaYisrael, peace be upon the Jews. So the Gemara says, even in a time with Shalom HaYisrael, meaning the person has already died and is already in peace, somebody who is over an Avera by starting up with him will be punished for it, and he falls into Gehenna. Now the Gemara quotes Tanai D'Bei Rabbi Shmuel, if you see a Talmid Chacham doing an Avera at night, you can be certain by the time the day rises, he's already probably done tshuva. The Gemara says, already probably done tshuva? No, he's for sure did tshuva. But if it's something which involves money, so do not assume anything until the money is returned, because you cannot do tshuva for a monetary issue without returning the money. Now the Gemara quotes Rabbi Shua ben Levi, says there are 24 cases or instances in which a person was put into chayrim, was put into nidoy, he was sent to be in solitude, away from the community, because of something that he did that was not respectful to people that are greater or on a higher level in the Torah scholarship than he is. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Elazar said, where are these 24? So he said, go look for it. It's 24 places in the Mishnayos. So he went and he looked. He only found 3. The 3 were somebody who made fun of the mitzvah of Netilas Yadayim, which is a Gezerah D'Rabbanan, somebody who spoke nasty things about a Talmid Chacham who died, and somebody who challenged Shemaim, challenged HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which the Gemara also refers to as a similar thing of somebody being disrespectful to his teacher. So the Gemara lists these 3 things. What are they? The Gemara begins with somebody who says evil things about a Talmid Chacham who died. The Gemara says that we have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says you do not give sota water to a woman who is a sota who also happens to be a giores or a freed evet. There's a drasha that sota does not apply to someone who was not a born Jew. So this was a statement of Akavia ben Mahalalel. So the Chachamim asked him, the Chachamim argued, and they said, you do. And they said there was an incident that happened with a shifcha by the name of Karkamis, or from a place called Karkamis. Rashi has 2 studim. And Av Shmaya and Av Italian took her to the base of Mikdash, and they went through the entire sota procedure with her, including the water. So Akavia answered, that was a dugma, which Rashi understands to mean that Shmaya and Av Italian themselves were descended from the Goyim. They were Gerim themselves, and therefore they felt that this freed Shifcha should have the status of a regular Yisrael, because they also felt the plight of somebody who was not a born Jew. And the Chachamim considered to be that disrespectful to Shmaya and Avtalion, and they put Akavia ben Mahalalel into Cherim, and he died in Cherim, and they stoned his coffin. So the Gemara says this is an incident of somebody who spoke not well. It was Akavia who spoke evil about Shmaya and of Talyan, and he said that their motives were less than 100%, so therefore he was put into Chayrim. So that's case number one. Now, what is the case of Mezalzel b'Netilas Yadayim? Somebody who was put into Chayrim because he was disrespectful toward the mitzvah of Netilas Yadayim. The Gemara says that same incident with Akavia, Rabbi Yehuda says that's not what happened. It can't be Chas v'Shalom that Akavia should be put into Chayrim. Akavia was one of the greatest men there were. When they filled up the Azara in the Beis HaMikdash with people bringing the carbon Pesach, and it was stuffed from end to end, there was nobody on the level of Akavia there in Tahara and Yiras Shemayim and in Chachma. So it can't be that he was in Chayrim. What actually happened was that Elazar ben Chanoich he started up in the mitzvah of Netilas Yadayim, and the Chachamim put him into Chayrim, and he died in Chayrim. Then afterwards they put a big rock on his grave in order to teach you the halacha that somebody who is in Chayrim and dies in Chayrim, Beis Din are supposed to do a action similar to stoning. It's the beginning of the stoning process to his grave. Now, what's the case of somebody who challenged Shemayim? So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says as follows: Chayni hama'agel. Chayni was a tremendous Talmud Chacham who wanted to bring rain, and he drew a circle in the sand, and he said, "I'm not leaving the circle until it rains." He challenged the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And Shimon ben Shetach sent to him, and he said, "You really belong in Chayrim. Yeah, you deserve to be excommunicated for doing that, for challenging Hashem. But I'm not going to, because you're Chayni. Chayni, you're a very special Talmud Chacham, and I'm not going to do that to you. And there's not really anything I can do about it, because although you sinned to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by challenging him so, but he granted your wish. He sent rain for you. So it's like a child who sins to his father, and his father listens to him anyway. About him it says, Yismach avicha v'imcha v'togel yoyladetecha. So they're happy even though the son sinned against them. So these are the three cases. So now the Gemara asks, one second, there are much more cases where you have somebody who was put into Nidui, who was put into Chayrim because of something that he did that was not respectful. So the Gemara brings a few, and the Gemara says, Rav Yosef says that Taidos, the Roman, he taught the Jews in Rome, even though they didn't have a Beis HaMikdash, they couldn't bring the carbon Pesach, that they should still roast a goat complete whole, just like they do on the for the carbon Pesach. They should do the same thing on Erev Pesach, even though it's not a real one. And Shimon ben Shetach said, if you're not that, you were Taides, I would put you in the Chayrim for that, because you can't do that, because it looks like it's a real carbon Pesach, and they're going to think that it is, and it's going to look like eating kachim, karbonis, outside of the place where it's allowed to be eaten, which in this case is Yerushalayim. So the Gemara says, no, this doesn't go into the list, because this is not a Mishnah. This is a Brisa. We said that there were three in the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, okay, I'll show you one that's in a Mishnah, because it says about the case of Tanur Shel Achnai, which is as follows: an oven that is made out of pottery that becomes tameh, you can purify it by cutting it up. So what if you cut it into ribbons, and then you glue them back together with sand in between? So it's a machlekes between Chachamim and Rabbi Elazar. If it is Mekabel Tumah again in the future, this is a famous discussion in the Gemara in Perek Zav in Baba Metzia. So the Gemara says that Rav Elazar did not agree to the Chachamim, and he insisted that his position was correct, and they put him into Chayrim, and they burned all the taharos that he did because of this ruling of his, and he refused to accept the ruling of the majority. So the Gemara says, well, okay, but it doesn't say in the Mishnah that he was put into Chayrim, it just quotes the Machlokes in Chayrim. We were looking for places where it says specifically in the Mishnah that the Chayrim happened. So the Gemara says, so then what are these 24 places that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi has, if there are only 3? He said that there were 24. So the Gemara says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi had 24 places where somebody was disrespectful to his elders, and he was saying that he deserved to be put into Chayrim. It doesn't say explicitly in all 24, but they were there. Rav Elazar only found 3 because there were only 3 where it actually mentions Chayrim. Okay, the Gemara now returns to the Mishnah and discusses the halachos of people carrying the coffin out, that they aren't obligated in Kriya Shema under certain circumstances. And the Gemara notes there's a brayso that says that you should not do a levaya close to Zman Kriya Shema because people are going to end up missing it. So the Gemara says, is that true? But Rav Yosef was brought out in his funeral close to Zman Kriya Shema. The Gemara says it's different, and Adam Chashav, a very important person, is different. Then the Gemara goes to the halacha of Hesped, somebody who's listening to a Hesped during Shema. So the Gemara says that the halacha depends. if the mace is present in the room, then people should go say Shema one by one, but they should not disturb the hesped. But if the mace is not in the room, so then the people that are listening that are not available, not mourners themselves, they are chayv and Shema, and they should stop and they should say Shema and they should daven Shemona Esrei. The Aval does not say Shema because he's an Einin at the time, he's Pater. And whenever everybody says Shemona Esrei, he should say Tziddik Hadin. He should say the bracha of justifying the ruling of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, even though it is difficult for him to accept. And the words that he should say are as follows. The Gemara says, he says, Rebbeinu Elam, master of the universe, I have done many sins before you, and what you have repaid me is not 1,000th of what I actually deserve. May it be your will that you close up our breaches, the purchase that of all the house of Israel, with mercy. Abaye says, you should not say that. You should not say that you did bad things. You should not say you deserve more punishments. Like we learned, Reish Lakish says you should not open your mouth to the Satan and give him an excuse to have a Kadosh Baruch Hu, to claim before a Kadosh Baruch Hu that he should punish you more. The Gemara brings a pasuk to support it. Kamat Kistem Hayinu. The people told Yeshaya Kamat Kistem Hayinu, and Yeshaya went back and he called them Kitzine Sedaim. Okay, back to the Mishnah of the Gemara. Now discusses the halacha of Shema for the Aval by Shura. The Mishnah had said that if the Aval has time to complete Shema before he goes to the Shura, then he should. So the Gemara notes that it's not if he has time to complete Shema, it's if he has time to complete a pasuk or a perek, then he should say that pasuk and perek. Not necessarily does he have to have time to complete the entire Shema, and the Gemara quotes Brisa to support that conclusion. Back to the Mishnah, the Gemara talks about halachas of Shura. The people in the Shura, the Mishnah had said, the people who are on the inside row of the Shura don't have to say Shema while they're doing Shura, which is the procedure whereby they comfort the mourner. The comforters line up in rows and the mourner passes between them. So the inside rows, the Gemara refers to the Mishnah that said that they don't have to say Shema, but the outer rows do have to say Shema. The Gemara says not all the outer rows, not all the inner rows. It's the inner row doesn't have to say Shema, and anybody who can see the inside of the circle where the Aval is doesn't have to say Shema, which includes the people in the second row. People past the second row should say Shema. They are chayivin because they're not actually involved in comforting the mourner at the time. Now the Gemara discusses the halachos of Kavod Habriyas. The question is, if a person is in a situation where he is violating an Issa D'Oraisa, and the only way to get out of it is by doing something which will be very embarrassing to him, very undignified, does his human dignity give him an excuse to keep or to start violating an Isser? So the Gemara says the case is the following thing. Somebody's walking in the street and he finds that the clothing that he's wearing, and in those days everybody wore one garment, clothing that he's wearing has shatness in it. He's being over Issa D'Oraisa. The Gemara says you should take it off even though he's in the middle of the street, because ein chachma vein tvuna leneged Hashem. Don't come up with all kinds of reasons why you don't have to listen to what Hashem said. Just do what Hashem said. The Gemara now attacks this with 5 cases where we see that you do sacrifice a halacha in order to protect human dignity. And the Gemara will discuss them one by one. So the Gemara says, first of all, we have the case of the following halacha. Somebody was a mourner and he went to the funeral, and on the way back from the funeral there were 2 ways to go. One of them had a grave along the way, one of them did not, and he chose to go on the way with the grave. The Kahanim that were walking with him should go with him on the way of the grave, even though they're going to be over Issa D'Oraisa, the Gemara says. So the Gemara says, why? The Gemara says, because you can't leave the guy to walk alone. The Gemara says, but what about the fact that they're being over in Isser? They're violating the halacha. So over here you see that the dignity of the Avel is more important than the halacha. So the Gemara says, no, the case of here was that the tumah that was on the road was tumah d'Rabbanan. It was a grave which was plowed over by a plow, and the bones were spread across the field. The halacha is midarais. You don't have to be worried about stepping on the bones. As we see, halachically, one is allowed to blow the bones out of the way. He's allowed to blow the sand in order to check for bones. And we say that if a lot of people stepped on it, it's not an issue anymore. So this is only midrabbanan. And midrabbanan, the Rabbanan built into their rule that you should not violate somebody's respect in order to keep this halacha midrabbanan. Next case the Gemara brings, we saw that there's a halacha that says that we used to skip over coffins in order to go greet a king, and not only a Jewish king, but even a non-Jewish king, in order that when we should finally get a chance to see a Jewish king in the days of Mashiach, we should be able to tell the difference. So Gemara says, how could you skip over these arenas? Tumah, Kaihanim. So Gemara says, like Rava, because the Aron kept the Tumah in Midaraisa. The halacha is that Tumah only breaks out of a container if it is squashed in that container, meaning the source of Tumah has no space around it. But if the Tumah has at least a tefach between it and the nearest wall, it is kept in. So the coffins were built with space between the body and the coffin wall of at least a tefach, and therefore it didn't go out. Only midrabanan is it a problem, and midrabanan they took it off in order to keep the mitzvah of honoring a king. Now the Gemara says the third case, we have a Mishnah that says the kavod habrios, human dignity, is so great that it pushes away a lav in the Torah, a loisa say in the Torah. So the Gemara says, so there you have it straight out. What happened to your statement? Ein chacham ein tfuna. Here you see that kavod habrios pushes away a lav in the Torah, which the Gemara understands to mean any lav in the Torah. So the Gemara says, no, it doesn't mean lav in the Torah. It means the lav of violating divrei chachamim. It pushes away the words in Isser D'Rabbanan you're allowed to violate in order to keep kavod habrios, and Isser D'Rabbanan is backed up by the loisa say of loisaser. You should not turn away from anything that Chazal said. So the Gemara says that when Rav Bar Shva said this to Rav Kahana, he gave this answer. He laughed at him, and they said to him, you shouldn't laugh. He's a very chashiv person, Rav Bar Shva. You shouldn't laugh at what he says. What he means is that the Rabbanon, although you have to listen to them, and it's an Issur D'Oraisa to violate them, they built into the rule that you're allowed to violate it if it's a case of sacrificing human dignity. The next raya, the Gemara says, is from the halacha that an older man does not have to return a lost object that he finds if the activities that he has to do to care for the lost object is beneath his dignity. The Gemara says, how is he allowed to do that? He's violating a mitzvah. The Gemara says he's allowed to because the pasuk specifically says so. It says v'hisalamta, and we have a drasha that sometimes you should be v'hisalamta, you should ignore the lost object, and that's what he's allowed to. So the Gemara says, well, let's learn out from here that any time that something is not within your proper dignity that you don't have to do it. And Gemara says, no, this is talking about mammon, this is talking about financial issues. You do not learn isurim from finances. Now the Gemara moves on to the following halacha. We say in the case of a person who is on his way to be makriv of the korban Pesach or to do a bris milah in order that his son should be able to be makriv of the korban Pesach, that he should stop if he sees a meis mitzvah, if he sees a body that is a mitzvah to take care of because nobody's taking care of it, he should stop and take care of it, even though he'll become tamei and be unable to be mekayim the mitzvah of korban Pesach. So how can he do that? He's losing the mitzvah for the sake of the honor of the mace. The Gemara says this is different because the pasuk says specifically. You learn it out from the extra word of Elachaise in the parsha of Nazir. The Gemara says, so let's learn out from there to the case of Keraim, the shatnez, that you do not have to keep the halacha because of human dignity. The Gemara says it's different. In this case, you're not actually violating any isser. You're being matam yourself, and you will not be able to bring the korban Pesach. Sheva al tasa. You're not doing anything wrong. You're missing something you should be doing. You cannot learn from there to the case of kilayim, where somebody is actually wearing something is not allowed to be, and that is a kumva asay violation where he's doing something actively wrong.